Hello, everyone. Starting off this episode a little bit differently. I want to give a shout out to NY Smoller, who just has a brand new LP on Something Awful. If you have an account there, go ahead and check it out. It promises to be something good. Also, a thank you to Derek J. Higgs 8 for following on Twitch, and to JuneJS for subscribing on YouTube. Now, without further ado, back to our main feature. Star Wars: The Heart of the Jedi by Kenneth C. Flint. Chapter 18. Captain Vascor marched crossed. Oh, and we start off with a typo already. Vascor marched crossed the Star Destroyer's bridge to where Tharkus and Cantos stood and saluted smartly. Should be marched across. Admiral, I have the reports, he said. There still has been no further contact with the Millennium Falcon. What about the fighters which followed it deeper? Tharkus asked. Have you discovered why they broke off pursuit? I questioned the two pilots who survived quite closely, sir. They swore to me that they only broke off after they saw the rebel ship and one of our own smashed by an immense beast. They're certain it couldn't have survived. From what they described down there, I believe it. The two barely escaped from the place with their own lives. Very well, Tharkus acceded. We will assume that the Falcon has been destroyed. We have no more time to spend here. Captain, order the search parties recalled. Bring all our forces back aboard. Prepare to get underway within the hour. Soon after his orders were passed, the last of the TIE fighters were streaking up from the planet and sailing into the big warship's landing bay. Below, Solo and Leia watched the withdrawal process on the remote sensor's monitor. She's definitely pulling in her claws, Han judged. I'd say he's finally getting ready to go. He looked around and down. Chewie? The Wookiee's hairy form was stretched on the cockpit deck, head shoved far under a console. From its depths, a frustrated "Oof" came back to him. Still no go on that port shield, huh? Said Han. Well, it'll have to be good enough. Go make a last check on the engines, then come help me get the power up. Chewie clambered forth, tossed his tools in the box, and headed back into the ship. Han began rummaging through the cockpit instruments. Leia continued to watch the Star Destroyer on the screen. Han, she called to him after a short while. I think they're leaving. He looked too. The last TIE fighters had disappeared inside the big ship. A blue light was beginning to glow within its engine cones. As they watched, the glow grew brighter, and the man-of-war began slowly to move, turning away from the planet, heading into space. There she goes, he said with relief. Now we'll just wait till we're sure she's jumped to light, so there's no chance of them detecting us. Then we're out of here ourselves. He went back to work checking the instruments, tossing to Leia. Warn our friends back there that we're about ready to fly, will you, sweetheart? Thanks, she said. He looked up to her in puzzlement. What for? For not calling me princess. Oh, yeah. Sorry, he said in mock confusion. I forgot. Just keep on forgetting, she told him with a smile. She turned towards the cockpit door, then paused to look back. If they ask, where are we going? To find Luke before that Tharkus does, he said. How are we going to do that? She asked. He didn't file a flight plan before he left base. No one knows where he was going. He could be anywhere in the galaxy. Only anywhere within range of his X-Wing, Han amended. Hey, don't worry. I've still got contacts all over there. I'll start contacting them once we're in the clear. We'll get some word on Luke sooner or later. I hope it's sooner, she said gravely. Yes, something good on something awful. Quite hilarious. Luke stood on an overhead catwalk and watched a dozen spheroid service droids rummaging in the depths below. He was alone there, having left R2-D2 plugged into a power jack to recharge his energy cell. The vast main bay of the square salvage ship was awash with bright lights now, as Captain Thatch's robotic crew picked painstakingly through a massive pile of junk. About it were other loads of salvage crowding the floor of the bay. The stuff was of all types and qualities. from Luke's own largely intact craft to more or less identifiable pieces of discarded goods and equipment, to jumbled masses of what seemed purest trash. The rotund Ewok captain waddled out onto the catwalk to join Luke, and looked down from beside him. Find anything interesting, mate? He growled. Lots of folks think of me as just a rubbish collector. Wrinkle up their varied sort of proboscises over the stinking job. A few see the high adventure in it. High adventure? Luke repeated, amused. Sure. Wandering free through the galaxy, searching for treasures. Always something new, always lots of surprises. It's a free life too, mate. I owe nothing to no one. And you're all alone on this big ship? Except for my trusty crew there, he said, nodding to the droids below. Couldn't do without them. What are they doing now? Luke asked, looking back down to them. They're my gleaners. Programmed them for the scavenging myself. They go through everything, sorting the good from the garbage. That's their lot. They're just now checking over the load I picked up right before I salvaged you. That stuff looks like all garbage to me, Luke remarked. Ah, not so, mate, Thatch said with gusto. Even the worst of it, you'd be amazed what you can find. Why, once in the most rotted heap of swill, found myself a giant Tuscan pearl. But it's deceiving both ways, too. What have looked like the best pieces on the outside have turned out to all be fake or rotten within. A tricky business, knowing what's the real thing. But you do all right? Come on, Thatch offered. I'll show you a bit of my gleanings. You be the judge. He led the way off the catwalk. Actually, there's enough business out there for 1,000 the likes of me, he explained as they walked. There's trash cast off in the trillions of tons from nearly all civilized worlds. I use civilized loosely. Space is littered with their waste. I've seen planets with rings of the stuff. I've seen places surrounded by trash envelopes so thick it was blocking their sunlight. There's even some where the jettison's junked mass is greater than the planets, I swear to you. They moved off the catwalk and into a broad corridor. You see that I surely can't take it all, he continued. I'm selective, that's the key. He touched his muzzle. Got a keen noise, that's supposed to be nose. Got a keen nose to sniff out where the value might be. They came out of the corridor into another large room. It was lined all about with shelves, cupboards, racks, and bins filled with all kinds of objects, sorted by type. It made a fascinating and impressive array. Floating curiosity shop on a massive scale. See here, said Thatch with a note of pride. This here is part of my salvaging. Pointed around the various spots. Furniture there, machine parts beyond, scrap metal, electronics, plastics, engines, gadgets and gizmos. You name it. And you've collected all this in your traveling? Luke said in open awe. I've collected all this in a year, mate. Abandoned wealth of a galaxy. All mine. Luke walked along the room, glancing at the myriad of wonderful things. He stopped at one bin full of colorful, complex objects. What's this? He asked, peering in. Toys, said the Ewok. Good ones, too. Amazing what gets tossed away by some bored brat. Luke shuffled through the pile of playthings, picking up a humanoid baby doll. It opened its eyes to look at him as he touched it, wriggled in his hand and softly cooed as if alive. You know, Luke mused, looking from it to the wonders all around. When I see this, it makes me think about how much I've missed. What, mate? Seeing junk? No, experiencing life like you have. For all I've done, I really haven't seen much of things. Regular things, I mean. Maybe that's my problem. I lived on a farm in probably one of the most isolated spots in the universe. From there, I went right off to war. These past few years, I've seen mostly the inside of cockpits and bases hidden by ruins, ice, or trees. Not much of a life, really. He put down the doll and picked up a toy stormtrooper of accurate detail and fully posable arms and legs, complete with blaster rifle. We all make sacrifices for what we want to do, Ewok sagely pointed out. Why, I live in a rubbish bin, don't I? Okay, you're now officially called Oscar the Ewok. Oscar the Ewok reporting for duty. Yup, Commander. But you have a chance to decide for yourself if you want to keep living that life, Luke told him. Can you understand what I mean? When I chose to become a Jedi, that life became all there was for me. And even now, when I've started wondering whether that choice was the right one, I feel like I've given up my freedom to the Force. He squeezed the toy trooper. Its blaster made a realistic firing sound, and the muzzle flared with red light. It was pointed right at him. Force, Luke said sharply, casting the war toy back into its bin. Sometimes I wish I'd never heard that word. Don't believe in it myself, said the Ewok bluntly. Nothing controls me or tells me what to do. He smiled at that. Now you sound like a friend of mine. He's kind of a rogue, too. He used to decry the Force, too. Real independent. Smile faded. He was, anyway, he went on more gravely. He got caught up in all of this, just like me. There's no force that can control you unless you let it, Buck said stubbornly. You said you made the choice. Well, then you can unmake it. You can take charge again. You can cut loose yourself. Cut yourself loose. I can't do that, Luke replied with some frustration. How can I? It seems sometimes like the whole galaxy needs me. He shook his head. Talk about responsibility. The Force is in me, like it or not. Through me, it saved my friends, saved the rebellion, saved your planet, defeated the Empire. That may be, but it was some great load to be put upon one young lad, Thatch agreed. Anyways, that doesn't matter now, he reasoned. You said yourself that the war is ending. Doesn't that set you free? You can do what you want. You can fly off with me. Could I? Said Luke, eyeing the Ewok, clearly intrigued. Of course you could. Seems to me you've done enough for everyone else. Think of yourself for a change. I wouldn't mind a partner. It does get lonely out here at times. Come with me adventuring through the stars and let the rest go hang. I'm tempted, Thatch, Luke told him honestly. Then he sighed. Still, I don't think I can just ignore the Force. I've got to find a way to live with it before I can do anything else. That's why He stopped abruptly there, clearly realizing he was about to reveal too much. You've what, lad? Thatch inquired. Why, I've got to think about it some more, Luke finished vaguely. But thanks for the offer. It stays open, mate, said the Ewok. He consulted a watch-like device strapped around one furry wrist. Say, look here. I've got to get topside and make the next course adjustment. I imagine it will be a long time till we reach the edge of the unknown regions. Longer than normal, since we're wanting to avoid as much Imperial contact as possible. This course will take us through their thinnest point. Do you want me to come with you? Oh, no need. Look here, if you're after something to do while I'm gone, go on back there. He gestured towards the far end of the big storeroom. I've loads of other goods that might interest you. Look around. There's ornaments, art, rugs, and tapestries. Clothing, too. He looked Luke's rather worn and dusty desert garb over critically. You know, your own kit's a bit ratty, he frankly observed. Feel free to look and take whatever you like. See you soon. He turned and trundled off, back into the corridor. Thanks, Luke called after him. Then he turned and started across the room. He looked around him as he walked. It was a bit eerie now, alone in the half-lit room, surrounded by the looming collections of things. His footsteps echoed hollowly on the metal floor. There was a strong presence here, as if the auras of age and people's lives surrounding all these objects were concentrated, hanging dense in the atmosphere. The blended essence of countless dreams, desires, expectations, disappointments, and disasters yet lingering from past owners, wafted from the things along with the sense of cleaning solvents and decay. Seems like I keep finding myself amongst the wreckage of past lives, he said as if speaking to someone. Then he laughed at himself. Oh, I forgot. Bad habit. He looked around again, then added, But I wish I brought you along for company this time, R2. He peered into a bin to find it full of battered weapons of all kinds. Another one held stacks of ornamental stones. Most of these were broken pieces of past architectural adornments, decorations carved as geometric shapes, abstract designs, elaborate plants, or grotesque beasts. Beyond this bin, he came to an area taken up by clothing. Shelves crammed with footwear for all manner of beings reached towards the roof. Rack after rack of garments stretched for scores of yards. He moved along aisles between the racks, examining the clothes. There were styles from modest to flamboyant, sizes from monstrous to minute, shapes from simple to mind-bogglingly complex. He felt some materials that were of coarse texture and primitive weave, and others of technological creation so fine they were more like misty air. The clothes were separated by general body type. After some wandering, he came into the section that looked to be made for humanoids. A very large number of these were cast-off Imperial garb. That's no surprise, murmured Luke, looking along the lines of identical dark uniforms. There were always a good many stormtrooper suits of white armor in good repair, save for the scorch marks and neat burn holes from lasers here and there, and even a few ultra-rare clone trooper pieces. Huh. Clone troopers? This was written in 92. Okay, I guess they already had clone troopers figured out by then. Interesting. He moved on to a rack of more varied civilian-looking clothes. He glanced down at his own battered garb, shrugged, began browsing through the individual garments. He paused at a simple black outfit. Tunic, jacket, and pants, much like those he'd worn before, his chosen garb as a new Jedi. Then another garment further along caught his eye. He pulled it out. It was a coat of rich, velvet-like cloth in deep green, splendidly decked out with embroidery and silver about collar and cuffs. Luke fingered the material thoughtfully. He gave a little smile. Well, why not? He said and began to pull off the worn cloak he wore. But he paused. His eyes had fallen on something else and fixed there. Through a gap in the hanging clothing, he'd glimpsed a faint yellow light. Curious, he moved toward it. He reached the last rack of clothes along the wall. Pushing aside some garments, he found himself facing a small door, the lighted button of a locking mechanism at its center. He considered it. He put a hand out towards the lock, but hesitated. Then, with some conviction, he said, Well, he did tell me to look around. Pushed the button. The light changed from yellow to red. With a faint click, the door unlocked, swinging open towards him. Inside was revealed a dazzling treasure trove. There were overflowing chests of gleaming coins and scintillating jewels. Precious metals cast into statues, jewelry, and plain ingots were packed onto shelves. A golden image of a rampant, lion-like beast was dominant, rising 7 feet in the middle of the floor. As Luke stood, staring dumbstruck by this sight, a gruff voice spoke from behind him. I told you it was amazing what you could find. Recovering from his surprise, Luke turned to look down at the Ewok, who was gazing on his gleaming collection with a gloating eye. You got all this by scavenging? Luke asked. Thatch winked and smiled. That's why they call me Lucky. He stepped past Luke and swung the door closed on the enticing view. Come on, he urged the young Jedi. Let's get some grub. We'll be reaching Imperial space soon. Best we talk a bit about just what we're going to do.